Next, special reports, Risk and Suicide Assessment Protocol, Mr. Micah Saley, Dr. Rolla Bazzi Gates, Ms. Christine Boucher, and Samar Beydoun.
This
Or
is
Sahar
also,
Beydoun.
if I can comment too,
Please.
this is something that the governor called me about, knowing that we were ahead of our assessments of buildings, and talked to me about this, process that we were implementing that they want to replicate across the state. And I know Trustee Watts, you had asked for this a while back too.
Thank you, Dr. Maleko, President Berry, Board Trustees. Thank you for giving us this opportunity today to discuss two very important initiatives and topics that we've undertaken here in Dearborn Public Schools. The first we're going to talk a little bit about is the risk threat assessment. This journey actually started back in 2022 and kind of came into full fruition just a few months ago. It took a lot of hard work, a lot of different presentations, a lot of committee work, a lot of collaboration, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the suicide protocol we have here in the district as well. Actually, that was in 2018 it really started, and we're actually right now going to start undertaking just a revision of the protocol, reviewing it, and making sure that it aligns with everything else. Before we get into some of those great things, or the team does, just some quick facts for the board and the community. In 2022, according to the CDC, more than 6,500 people ages 10 to 24 died as a result of suicide. In 2022, it was the 9th leading cause of death amongst people in that age group as well. And then in 2023, there were more than 340 mass shootings in schools all across the country. And unfortunately, the reason why I'm giving you this data and these facts is really going to culminate why we do what we do here in Dearborn Public Schools. Now, obviously, a lot of these statistics that I just listed above are directly related to mental health conditions a lot of times. Whether a child or whether a student commits suicide, mass shootings, we know there's some sort of underlying mental health thing going on, usually when we're involved in these behaviors. Hence, as a district, what are some of the things that we are starting to do or try to be proactive with? And this is just a small list of the many different great things we're doing here in Dearborn Public Schools. Dr. Maleko alluded to the fact that we probably have the highest ratio of student to social worker in the state right now. I believe we're at about 55 school social workers in the district, which is phenomenal. And obviously, we appreciate the support of the board. But when you look at our school psychologists, our counselors, and our social workers, that's more than 100 mental health professionals we have directly employed by Dearborn Public Schools, which is obviously a positive thing for our community and our students. We partner with
Mike, can I
local-
comment on that too? Mike
Yeah.
has done a great job seeking out grants as well to support, they're asking us to slow.
I'm going too
for
fast.
translation. But anyway, I want to commend him and his team because we've multiple grants between the county and state to fund these positions, which is why have a higher number.
Absolutely. We're very, very aggressive with grant writing and whatnot, especially right now with mental health. There's a lot of dollars out there, and we're going to take advantage of them. We're going to continue to take advantage of them. And it's not always directly just related to mental health. It could also be affective education or the social emotional piece as well. Care Solace, the social emotional hotline. These are great resources right now we have for our community. Care Solace, I believe back in August, we spoke about it briefly, and basically what it is an organization that will connect any community member in Dearborn that has any ties to Dearborn Public School with a mental health expert of their liking, and they kind of give them the profile and whatnot. So it's been a huge support for our community and our school community. Trauma-informed training. A couple years ago, we went through a series where we partnered with Wayne County RESA, and we actually trained in-house 70 trainers of trauma-informed practices. And from there, we developed a train-the-trainer model, and they trained all the teachers on what signs of trauma look like within the classroom. Social emotional learning, I know with the MyKit process and with Ms. Farage's work, that's a huge component that we continue to work on and hopefully improve in this district as well. The focus on the whole child, not just the academic piece. We want the affective education side of it, the social emotional side of it as well. Dr. Bazzi Gates has done a great job with different initiatives such as PBIS. The Student Safe Voice Box, I can't tell you how tremendous that really has been an asset for us in the district. It's truly been a huge asset because we're getting emails, from time to time. I can tell you at least once or twice a week whether it's a student who's concerned about a specific situation or whatever it may be. And it really, really helps us target in, problem solve with some kids, and to continue to move forward as well. CIS, community and schools, that's something we've also expanded the last few years, again, to support more so the whole child, affective education piece. Suicide workshops, in fact, just this past February 27th, which was Election Day here, all of our social workers, counselors, and school psychologists were in a seminar for mental health, where the presenter, I think, from Wayne State University really, really focused in on the suicide prevention, intervention, and things along those lines. With that said, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Sahar Beydoun, who's going to talk a little bit about our Comprehensive School Threat Assessment, or CSTAG. And then from there, Ms. Christine Bussey will talk a little bit, and then Dr. Rolla Gazi-Gates will finish us off.
So CSTAG is the Comprehensive School Threat Assessment Guidelines. It was presented by Wayne Risa, and their team trained the social workers, psychs, OTs, and counselors in the winter of 2023. Team members involved in the threat assessment must include a mental health professional as well as an administrator. Others can be part of the team, such as an SRO, a teacher, special education provider, but you must be trained in CSTAG in order to be part of the team. Ideally,
Slow down, would you slow down?
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Ideally, we want someone with needed expertise or experience with the issue at hand. The team can expand and contract as necessary, and again, training is needed in order to conduct a threat assessment.
A threat is an expression of intent to physically or sexually harm someone. It can happen in many different ways. Sometimes it's spoken, sometimes it's written, and sometimes it's gestured. Now, we conduct a threat assessment because we want to prevent school violence, but we also want to provide intervention to students that are making to the threat as well. So a threat happens in two different ways. We have transient threats, and we also have more substantive threats. A transient threat is a threat that is made that has no basis. It's said very quickly, and it's usually an expression of anger or frustration. So there's no intent involved when we're looking at a transient threat. When we're looking at a substantive threat, those are the more serious threats. And those threats, they tend to be very detailed. There's a lot of intent behind them, and they can also be very serious in that they can have weapons involved in them. When we are looking at weapons involved, we are contacting our SROs, and with the SRO involved, they'll be determining next steps in order to proceed. So a threat assessment involves evaluation and classification of the threat, whether it be transient or substantive. Again, we're trying to formulate an appropriate response plan and intervention. So we do that in many different ways. The first thing we do is we want to make sure that we're looking at all of the data available to us. So this can be records, we're getting teacher reports, we're getting student reports, and we're also talking to families and parents. We want to let them know that a threat assessment is taking place, but we also need to get their input in determining what next steps to take in order to support the student. Now, when we are talking to students about who have made the threat, oftentimes we'll notice that they also have suicidal ideations, and at that point we will be doing a suicide assessment, which Ms. Bazzi-Gates will go into further. I do want to caution you that there's no profile of a student that can cause harm. What we do is we make sure that we're looking at the whole child, but we don't want to come in with any preconceived notions as to who is a person that would make a threat or carry out a threat, because that can lead us to misidentifying students. Lastly, I do want to make it very clear that a threat is conducted to support the student who's making the threat. Keep in mind that there may be times when a student needs to have some interventions in place that may include detentions or part of the student code of conduct with expelling them. But our main concern with a threat is how we deal with it and dealing with it in a positive manner so that we make sure these students are well supported moving forward. Ms. Bazzi-Gates?
Thank you. When we talk about suicide protocol, it was created by a group of school social workers about 5 years ago, as Mr. Asaili said. And the purpose of the suicide protocol in our district is to unify everyone, to have all the district personnel, follow the same procedure. We want to incorporate the best practices when it comes to students' health and safety and mental health. And also, we want to address the effective needs of our students and what need to be done, in an effective and timely manner. We want to promote also about suicide awareness, so everybody knows, what to do and, how to educate others. Also, we train new school social workers every year. Whenever we hire a new social worker, we train them about suicide protocol in our district, so they know the protocol and ready, to act when needed. If a student, for example, is suspected to commit suicide or has ideation or a plan or mention anything to anyone, what do we do? Definitely, we have a school mental health support team in schools. It's the school psychologist, it's the social worker, the school counselor, the nurse, the SRO. One of them will be contacted immediately, and then the protective measure will be put in place in order to support the student, so the student is not left alone. And then definitely a suicide screener is done, and the risk assessment. And definitely we contact the administrator in the building, and the parent will be contacted. Our goal is also to support the parents, to let them know what's the next step, what do they need to do in terms of anything happen, for example, connect them to community resources, or take the student to the ER. So that's what we have. Thank you. Do you have any questions?
Before we go into questions, Trustee Thorpe, you can go ahead and break your fast now, if you want to get some water.
No, I'll wait a little longer.
Trustee Thorpe's been fasting the last few years, at least one day a month, kind of feel what his community goes through, so thank you. Questions? Trustee Watts?
So I just wanted to let everyone know, this was brought, I brought this up to policy when the Oxford report was released on October 31st of last year. And so the policy committee, we had looked through those findings to see what the report had said, to make sure that we were on top of all of our policies and whatnot. So thank you for bringing this forward. So this was nothing other than, unfortunately, a sad situation that the other districts perhaps could review what we're doing. And so, Mr. Saley, you had mentioned something about an organization called Care Solace, I
Yes.
believe. So so I'm looking at some of the home pages. I looked at and this could be my own, I'm going to assume I'm not seeing this, but I'm looking on our page, on our Dearborn Public School page, because I see that Care Solace will take in, regardless if you have insurance or not. And I think that's part of it, is that many parents just don't know because they're afraid of the you don't have insurance and you know that it's going to be expensive. Is it on our district website, the link to them?
So right now, we're currently working on something to where I think we're going to put it on our SEL page, the Care Solace link, so it could be accessible to more community members.
Okay. And then the other one, I saw that we have an SEL link. Is there anything that, say, for instance, because I think most parents don't know what SEL is.
Right.
So is there any way that we can say, you have questions about your child's non-physical health, right? Because also mental health. Is there a way that we can change the verbiage? Because if I was looking on there, I wouldn't know what SEL, I know what it is, but most parents don't. Just so that if there's an easier way for them to connect the issues that they're having with home to a link on our website.
Yeah, we can definitely look into the
Okay.
fact on making a more parent-friendly language so people truly understand it.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Perfect. All right.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you.
Trustee McDonald?
Yes, one of the things that concerns me is that I know students are close to other students. And those are the ones that are the peers and the ones that are best friends and the ones that may have a better assessment of what a student is going through. Do we have measures in place to help a student if they have a friend that's struggling or they may be concerned, so that a student knows how I can reach out to help this friend of mine in the most appropriate manner?
I think, Trustee McDonald, that's something that we're definitely going to continue to build upon. You'll see different buildings have better systems in place, I think. I'll give you a prime example right now. Woodworth Hornets, I mean, they recently started some sort of peer-to-peer type social media Instagram site to where really what they're talking about is mental health awareness and things along these lines. So I think ultimately part of the goal and part of the committee's goal with Dr. Bazzi Gates and I are to just ensure that, hey, if there are some issues, you can reach out reach out to this person. And I know a lot of
Mike.
our schools do that
Mr.
initially.
Saley, microphone.
Oh, a lot of our, sorry, a lot of our students do that. A lot of our principals and building staff do that when doing student orientations and things along those lines. But I do definitely feel like there's more that possibly we can be done just to raise the awareness.
And trustee, we have a safe box at
Right.
every building, which you've had for several years, that's monitored so that if they want to report something, they can, anybody can, any student.
And it's been very effective, the safe box. Like I said, we get probably 2 to 3 emails a week just from the safe box.
Good. Thank you.
Trustee Petrikov?
Okay, we know that in any community, there's a big stigma on mental health. And coming forward and admitting that you're struggling, that you have a friend that's struggling, that you have a family member that's struggling. We also probably can recognize that the way we communicate it to our staff and students may not always reach them in a way that makes them feel safe enough to come forward and have that conversation. Do we do anything in the buildings en masse, so to speak, with any kind of outreach that can explain to a student at any kind of assembly or any kind of opportunities to get all of the students kind of having this conversation and making them more comfortable with it, making them understand and recognize what they should be looking for and/or reporting on if necessary, so that the stigma is kind of diluted and that parents and students can get the help that they really might need.
Yeah, I can tell you at all 3 high schools, most definitely. We've had different assemblies and different, I believe the sports world who will come in and they'll discuss just raising the awareness. I know a couple years ago, I believe it was maybe the summer of 21 or 22, I don't remember. We had Trustee Watts and we had different members of the community also host a panel over the summer that was live streamed, I think, via Zoom and whatnot. So also, other things that we do, and I know Dr. Bazzi Gates really does a nice job at this, is just outreach and working with different the community agencies and community members, because it truly, truly takes a village. Because I think at the school setting, we can continue to raise awareness, but what's nice is when you start going to the mosques, you start going to the churches, and they're starting to speak this language to hopefully eradicate that stigma, because that's probably 80 to 90% of your problem from time to time, unfortunately. It's just families don't want to come forward because they don't want that stigma, or they're worried about, oh, I don't want people to look at me differently, or things along those lines. So we'll continue, I guess, to advocate in that sense to ensure that if, children need help or anyone needs help in the community, we're here and we'll help you navigate to get the best help you possibly can.
Trustee Watts?
So another thing to piggyback off of what Trustee Petrikov had said, and I'm thinking if I was, let's say, a high schooler, and if I'm struggling, so I know that they can fill out the student safe voice. Do we have a program where we can text the student? Because part of it is, it's the stigma, right? But it's also the face-to-face conversation. When you say it out loud, that's an extreme you become vulnerable to feedback versus texting, where it's you don't see the reaction. Do we have that sort of technology or the privacy? What implications do we have with that?
Go ahead.
Yeah, there is, of course, a program called OK to Say that encourages students to report any suicide ideation or plan or feeling depressed or down, so he or she can get the support.
Is that also open to parents? I would say that in terms of if the parents are saying, I need something, but I don't know what's happening with my child.
So
I
okay
believe
to
so,
say,
yes, I believe so. To anyone, yeah.
We have school safe boxes in the district for every school. So on every website of every building in the district, whether you're a parent, whether you're a staff member, whether you're a student, anybody can click on the safe box and an email can go out to whoever needs to know what's going on or what the concern is with that person. State of Michigan, same thing, OK to Say. It's a link that everybody has access to, whether you're a resident who doesn't even have a child in the school, or whether you're a parent, staff member, board member. Anybody can click on that link too, and the school will be notified.
But would it give text features back and forth that
It
you
gives
could?
email feature,
Okay.
not text.
Okay, so we don't necessarily have a text, so it'd have an email connected to it,
Correct,
but it's still not a face-to-face.
correct. And that's
Okay.
if they provide the email. If not, it'll go back to that person. And then if they want to have a private conversation, there's an option for that too, where somebody can reach out to them, pull them in, have a private conversation, or if they have their cell phone number, they can text them.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Since we have you up here, Ms. Ziad, that was a great interview on Channel 2.
Oh,
It
thank
was
you.
a great message.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ramadan Mubarak to everybody.
Thank you. Trustee
Um,
McDonald?
Yes, and I don't know if you'll be able to address this, but it's just something that came to mind. Our students, and you have all been involved in students for many years. So pre-pandemic was one set of issues. Post-pandemic was another set of emotional, social, and mental health issues. And I don't know if if we've moved forward or there's other issues now. So can you kind of give us a finger on the pulse of what's going on with our students in general?
It could be, yeah, it could be issues, Roxanne, like depression, anxiety, you know, not coming to school, or any issue, honestly, that, bother the students. So definitely, if we find out there's an issue with the student, we refer, for the team in the building, for the social worker. We do home visit, we go intervene, talk to the parents, do a meeting, whatever we need to do, or refer for outside services. And we work heavily, closely with community organization for mental health. Like in New Oakland, for example, last year, for Edsel Ford and other buildings, for example, invited them to come and talk to our staff about what are signs of depression and anxiety, mental health. What can we do as a staff to support our students? So we work heavily with organizations around us, definitely to support parents and students and also staff.
Have you noticed that if the particular triggers have changed, or if there are any particular triggers, or it's just
Not
Not
really.
necessarily.
No, not,
Okay.
probably not the same. Probably anxiety. I see more
I think
anxiety.
I think the three
Anxiety.
professionals here would
Yes.
probably say we're still seeing a lot of the mental health
Yeah.
in the classroom. We're seeing how it exhibits in the classroom. I'm not sure we're seeing necessarily a decline at this point yet from post-COVID.
No.
though.
okay?
Seems like generally before COVID, there were a lot of concerns with depression and anxiety. COVID put a spotlight on that, and it seems like those areas are growing in our district, unfortunately. But we do have some amazing supports in place. But unfortunately, because of COVID, which caused a lot of anxiety for students, those that may have had mild anxiety, it's now increased to more moderate or severe.
And like anything else, whenever you increase awareness, right, people are more educated about it, so they'll know, and they'll hopefully be more willing to go seek some help, or at least identify as, hey, here are some issues that I'm dealing with.
Dr. Gates, as you were answering Trustee McDonald, the thought came to my head is the students being bullied. Did you ever hear from those students, where their mindset's at?
Sometimes we're
There's-
conducting assessments because students are being
Being
bullied.
bullied, yes.
But again, the goal of the assessments that we conduct are really to put supports in place and identify those triggers that may
Okay.
be happening so that we can make sure to
Because
support the student.
when we hear from parents, of these students, they tell us, my daughter's in a state of depression, and I don't know what to do, and this and that. So I guess let's just pay attention to that. Trustee Petrikov?
One last question. I've been reading a lot about these issues, and one of the shortages that we're finding, not only with social workers and psychologists, are pediatric psychiatrists and facilities to take care of these students. Once we identify them, we have to do something. And I guess my greatest fear is that we continue to run away from the people who could probably help provide those kinds of supports outside of the school district. I mean, we can only do so much and provide so much, and we need professionals out in the big wide world here, able to provide the medical background that is necessary to help these students. Have you seen any movement or hear of any when you, I mean, because once you identify them, do you have a place to send them for help outside of the district?
Yeah, so that's where relationships come into place. And Dr. Bazzi Gates really does a good job reaching out all of our local clinics and building and developing those relationships. So when we are in a jam or a family's in a jam, we can call somebody from the New Oakland Center and say, hey, here's the situation, how can you help us? And that does really, really help us from time to time. And you're starting to see different agencies such as LAHC, Access, really get involved in a lot of the mental health and start having some of those relationships and those connections too, just to help students or families moving forward. But there's a huge shortage on the medical field of medical side of mental health right now, and it's impacting so many people. Like I have a niece who works in one of the mental health facilities, and she'll tell you that there just aren't any beds available from time to time for patients who need it. So it's unfortunate, but it's things that hopefully we try and mitigate through and work through the system and help our community as much as possible.
And I think we better start all advocating up the chain to the federal government that, I know they're aware of it, but we
Right.
really need to get more proactive, I believe.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right.
Great. Thank you very
all
much. Great report.
Appreciate your time.
And thank you, Trustee Watts, for asking for that report. Very important subject.